You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
Well, thank you for staying in for JW World News. Well, my name is Rick Farron. I'm coming to you from the hub of the universe, otherwise known as the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And how neat it really is to see all of my friends coming on here tonight, all of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, as well as even loyal Jehovah's Witnesses. Did you know the loyal Jehovah's Witnesses actually listen to the Six Screens? Well, they might not be as loyal as you think. They're probably what they would call PIMQs, right? People that are working their way to the exit door of the Kingdom Hall. Well, anyways, it's so neat to be able to be doing these programs. We've been doing now for 20 years. We've never missed a Saturday night. We are here because you are here. Some people have said this is like a giant therapy session where we all get together on Saturday night and every other Sunday, and we can talk and we can share each other's experiences of our trek in the Watchtower. As a matter of fact, Six Screens is where ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come to talk, and they've been doing that now for 20 years. Well, you know, it's so interesting, and I was talking to Dick and Constance earlier before their program. We are seeing a big uptick in the amount of people coming into the Six Screens Telenetwork. I'm not really sure why. I have thoughts on it. I know the platform that we broadcast on, that might be making it a little better. We broadcast on StreamYard, and StreamYard has offered a new service within the last month. Now, we all know we have different devices, right? Some have iPhones, some have tablets that they watch the Six Screens on, some watch it on a laptop, some watch it on a desktop. So there's two different formats in the world of the internet that you can view a video on or see a video. It can be landscape, which is, horizontal. It's a bigger picture, and also a small device, which they call portrait picture. So now what StreamYard has done is they're allowing people on a small device, rather than see a little tiny picture, they can see a bigger picture of me or whoever else comes on the Six Screens. So maybe that's one of the reasons, but our viewership has actually doubled in the last month. But it might not entirely be all that. Maybe it's because more people are packing their bags. More people are waking up and smelling the coffee, and they're leaving. So wasn't that what you were doing? That's what I was doing. Back in 2005, when Satan kicked me out of his organization, I couldn't get enough of this. I couldn't talk to enough ex-witnesses, and there wasn't that many that were readily available like there is now. You had to hunt an ex-witness down 15, 20 years ago. But today it's a lot easier. We have these communities like the Six Screens and other networks that are producing fantastic videos. We have Reddit, we have JWN, we have Facebook, we have all of these platforms where we can now connect with all of the ex-witnesses. So it's a lot different and a lot better. I have to say that. Well, thank you very much for wanting to come in and spend some of your night here with us. It's a cold night up here in New England, but it's warm to have all you folks come in and be with us. It warms my heart. It really does. So let's take a look. Let's see what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. I just wanted to bring this up, and I think it's important to talk about it right off the bat. I want to talk about something that happened just on the 30th of December. That was just a few days, a week ago, right? A week ago, the 30th of December, the day before New Year's Eve. It was right at the end of the month. So what the organization did is the governing body actually sent a letter to all of the Bethelites. Did you see that letter? I hope you did. But if not, just sit down because you're going to be kind of surprised with the letter I'm going to read you. But, for years, the governing body has acknowledged the fact that they have a worldwide order of special and full-time servants of Jehovah God. And these servants, we call them Bethelites, as they do as well. And they've accepted full-time service as a career, not a temporary assignment. Now, there's many listening to JW World News tonight, and you were Bethelites. I'm sure there's some out there listening in. And when you went to Bethel, you, at least in your mind, looked at Bethel as a full-time service career. You were devoting your life to Jehovah. Now, not many went to Bethel just accepting a temporary assignment. When you go there, it's more or less drilled in your head that you're going to be there. And you got to kind of spend at least 4 years. It's like the military, right? But this week, on December 30th, 2025, the Bethelites all got a letter, and I'm going to read you the letter. And it shocked me. It really, really did. And I didn't want to save it for the end of our news because I'm going to take each month and give you the biggest news articles that we found out about the Watchtower. But I wanted to bring this up first because I find it very important, and it's very challenging. Let's put it that way. If you were a Bethelite and heard this letter that I'm going to read, you would be a little bit perturbed. You really, really would. Let me start off by reading it to you. Let me just make sure everything's going fine here on. Okay. Let me go over here to. Okay, let me go over here and make sure everything's going fine, which it is. Like I say, I have to press the right buttons here. We got a lot of things going on, but let me read you this letter, and the letter is really. It is quite challenging if you were a Bethelite. So, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, dated December 30th, 2025. Dear brothers and sisters, working alongside you during the past year has brought great joy. This is from the governing body. So they're saying that working alongside the Bethelites has brought them great joy. We wish to express our heartfelt appreciation for all that you have done in behalf of kingdom interest. Your spirit of cooperation, humility, and love is it's very small print here, so just bear with me a little bit. And your love is evident that your loyal service is an example. Deeply, it encourages us. So the governing body starts off by at least suggesting that they appreciated being able to work along with the Bethelites. But I mean, don't you smell something brewing here? Don't you seem to think that there could be something that might kind of get a little more alarming as we go along? So paragraph 2, it says, we realize that the recent announcements about Bethel's service may have stirred various emotions in many. Well, yes, we talked about it too, didn't we? On how they're going to be cutting back on people who are 80 years old, will no longer be serving in committee arrangements and positions at the Watchtower. So the governing body is acknowledging that the announcements that have kind of leaked out in the last couple of months is frightening the Bethelites. So it says, knowing that Bethel service will no longer be viewed as a permanent assignment can naturally lead to questions about the future. Well, imagine it would. Now, you're a Bethelite. You went there when you were 20 years old, 25 years old maybe, and now you're 50. Now you're 60. I mean, wouldn't you be a little frightened with a letter coming to you like this? Wouldn't you kind of think, what is happening here? What's going on? There's going to be no more. Now, the governing body is acknowledging there will be no more permanent Bethelites. Now, that's something. So Bethel service will no longer be viewed as a permanent assignment, and can naturally lead to questions about the future. Well, of course, it would, especially if you have served at Bethel for many years, the letter says. Of course, it says, barring exceptional circumstances, those 60 and over will continue to be cared for in Bethel. I'm going to stop right there. I rather doubt this is going to happen. I think this is just soft pedaling it. Maybe it does mention that there will be some. It says there'll be extenuating reasons that you'll leave, but it's more or less saying that they're going to take care of those 60 and older. I mean, I'm going to open this up later and I'm going to get your thoughts on it because I think it's a bunch of baloney, to be honest with you. They're looking to really cut back. Friends, I've been telling you here, we've been counting down the last days of the Watchtower for 20 years. This is not an organization that has Jehovah's chariots on the move. This is an organization that's going backwards. So they're now telling us in this letter, dated December 30th, there'll be no more permanent Bethelites at the headquarters. Now, this would be concerning for those over 60. So it's saying that for those 60, barring exceptional circumstances, those 60 and over will continue to be cared for at Bethel. Now, whatever your circumstances might be, Jehovah understands your feelings and will help you cope with internal anxieties. At the same time, he gives us the loving reminder, train yourself with godly devotion as you aim. 1 Timothy 4:7. Let's just back up for a second and just kind of dissect what was said here. So it's saying here, whatever your circumstances may be, Jehovah understands the feelings and internal anxiety. Well, Jehovah, the God of the universe, he might understand the internal anxieties, but does the governing body? Why does the governing body say that? They say Jehovah said it. These are just little things. I'm not trying to be picky here, but I'm looking at something here that it's tantamount to a layoff letter. I mean, if you were working for a company for 20 years, 30 years, this is how a letter would read. We really appreciate it. And, there's going to be some issues, but don't worry. Everything's going to be great. Well, is it going to be great? So now it says, notice, this is right verbatim from the letter. It says, notice that the emphasis is on training ourselves with godly devotion. Godly devotion equips us to be loyal and to face change with calmness and confidence, even when the path ahead may be unfamiliar. In reality, you have already been training yourselves in this way by relying on Jehovah, showing humility and being generous with others. You have developed the very qualities that will continue to go to steady you as you deal with these changes. So there's going to be a lot of Bethelites that are going to have to change their way of living. I mean, they were basically, they never were on a cakewalk. I wouldn't say that. I mean, they went there and they worked and they gave their hard-earned labor to the Watchtower for basically nothing. So the letter goes on. It's a 2-page letter, but it gives Bible examples of Jonathan and others in the Bible and how they followed. Well, they use the example of Abraham, for example, and how he was an excellent example. And he just followed Jehovah's course of direction. Of course, they're going to bring that up. But it was troubling to me. And, even though I've distanced myself from the Jehovah's Witnesses, I do the news, of course, but I mean, I'm not one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but there still was a feeling of empathy. I'm trying to put myself in the Bethelites' position right now. That's going to come as a shock. Now, bear in mind, when you go to Bethel, you basically, you go there with an intention that you're going to serve Jehovah God to the best of your ability. You take a vow of poverty. You can't make any money. You're not even going to be on Social Security. So you don't have any Social Security. You have no pension. There's no backup funds. So what you're doing here is the Watchtower is going to cut you loose. Now it does say, and I want to emphasize, it does say that unless there's an extenuating circumstance or an exceptional circumstance, let's go with that. That's what the letter says. That some Bethelites over 60 would be let go. Well, I'm wondering what that exceptional circumstance would be. I don't know. But anyway, just put yourself in that position and you read a letter like that. I don't really trust this letter. If I was a Bethelite, I wouldn't trust this letter. I would hope, and we're going to get into that too to discuss this, because I did try to do a little research on this, and I really wanted to know, will any of these Bethelites get any money from the Watchtower? I mean, there are examples. Well, I know of one example in particular back in the 1980s of Raymond Franz. He was a governing body member. He said that's enough. He didn't want to be a Watchtower person, a Jehovah's Witness anymore. So he left. They gave him $10,000. This wasn't a whole lot back then, but I mean, it's more than it is, it's more back then than it is now. But, you would think any reasonable, fair company. I mean, I run a company, a little company. It's not a big company. It's a little company, but I got people working, and I'm thinking, if people put 20 years in of service, I just couldn't give them a letter that, okay, we're going to let you go now. I'd have to do something for them. I'd have to give them something. I mean, you just can't leave them out to hang them out to dry. You got to do something for them. So, the art. Why would they come out with this letter the first of the year? That's also fascinating to me. Really, I mean, get it in before the year's over. Get it in before the year's over is basically what they're doing. So, anyways, what do you guys think of that? What do you think of that letter? Do you think that's fair to the Bethelites? What do you think? I'd love to hear.
I think they should lose their 501c3 religion status, because those young brothers went in there like it was a monastery. Upstate New York is zoned for monasteries. They're expecting that they're going to be there until their personal last day. They live a child-free lifestyle. They're far from their family. If they have any family left, they should be taken care of until their personal last day.
I agree with you, Pixie. I really, yes.
I think what's going on right now, out of just about everything next to the CSA, this is the most disgusting and heartbreaking thing that I think can happen. I grew up with a kid, one of the nicest I can ever remember. His name was Donnell. He has been in Bethel since he graduated high school, maybe after a year of pioneering or something like that. Hopefully, if I remember correctly, he's a couple of years older than me. He might be able to fall into that 60-year bracket. But let's say that he doesn't. Can you imagine being sent, and as you just said, you have no money, no retirement, nothing in Social Security, and nothing in unemployment, and they send you out. And even if they gave you some money, it's not going to last long enough to really do anything unless you come out and immediately find a job. That's not going to happen. You can't rely on unemployment to tide you over. There's no Social Security for you to collect, and you have no retirement. And I know everybody's hearing what you're saying, but I don't know if we're really appreciating the magnitude of this. If we put ourselves in these people, you have nothing, and you're coming out in one of the highest inflation rates ever. This economy is extremely unpredictable, and then you add what AI is going to do to the economy. That we're just beginning to sort of see how AI is impacting this economy. We don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know how many jobs are going to be displaced because of automation, AI, and all the rest. And now you lump in a group of people who have basically no marketable skills to speak of. And they can't even show anything on a resume for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life. Well, maybe not 40 and 50, but you get it. And they're trying to find a job in this extremely high cost of living. I feel, my heart feels so heavy for these people and what they're about to go through. And they think that they can go out to the congregations and the congregations are going to take care of them. You have said on your program, Rick, many times that the witnesses at the local congregations are not making it. They couldn't help if they wanted to. And they may not want to, but even if they did, they couldn't help. They're barely making it. So they're going to be forced to do the same thing witnesses are forced to do during COVID. They're going to have to go to the very thing that they've been taught all this time is demonic. That is the government and the various charities, Catholic charities and all of this stuff, just to survive. And I wonder, when that cold realization really sets in, will they finally see that this organization isn't the truth? That this organization isn't of God, that there's no Holy Spirit in the organization, in the congregation? I wonder if they'll finally see it when they're almost starving, having to stand in a line at a Catholic church just to get food and just
They'll
to
see
survive.
it at the Salvation Army. They will.
Hey, Stefan, can I cut in real quick?
I have an idea.
It's RJ.
since
Oh,
we're
Pixie, hold
probably
Pixie,
listening.
hold on one second. We got some other people trying to come in. Go ahead, sir.
Stefan, I just think at Corinthians 13:11, when I became a man, I put away childish things. Some responsibility's got to be on these witnesses for staying in as long as they have.
Yep.
If you've noticed patterns of abuse and if you notice patterns
Right.
of lies, you got to grow up.
Right.
You got to move on.
I agree. I agree, but this is a cult. Your brain gets rewired. The fear. You hear witnesses talk all the time, like the brother commented earlier. He said he was Pimo. He doesn't believe it, but for whatever reason, he hasn't left. Now you go to Bethel, and you've been there for all these years. You leave, and you have nothing. So the best thing to do in your mind is to stay, especially if you really believe Armageddon is right around the corner and all the rest of this. But now that all of this stuff has been shown to just be a lie, a fabrication, there is no Armageddon coming in your lifetime. Well, if it's not coming in my lifetime, then it's a mute point for me. If it's not going to happen to me, it's mute. So now they're being told Armageddon is not coming, and now they're kicking you out of Bethel. So I understand why some might have stayed. It's sad, but this is the reality of being in a brainwashing cult.
I got a solution for them if they're listening.
Go ahead, Pixie.
I was in.
Hold
How
on,
many
sir,
branches
sir,
do
hold.
they have? How many countries do they have? Why don't they send those dear brothers and sisters to a warmer climate, to a different branch?
Well, what I have heard they're going to do with some of them, now, there's assembly halls. They did close down a few of them in the last few years, but there are assembly halls, and there are caretakers that live at the assembly hall. They have apartments in all of the assembly halls.
True.
So there, what I've heard is some of the privileged enough ones are going to be given an assignment as a caretaker of one of the assembly halls. And there are some kingdom halls too, believe it or not, that have apartments. The one up here in Wilmington, Massachusetts, where I live, they actually have 2 apartments there where witnesses live. A retired circuit overseers, mostly, from what I understand. But there'll be a few mucky mucks who cozied up kind of close to the watchtower. They'll be okay, but the general run, the average Joe Bethelite, he's in trouble. And I can only say that based on stories I have heard here on the 6 screens. Marcus Vaughn is one of them, who was let go at Bethel. He was a Bethelite. And, on the way out, he got some food in the commissary, and they charged him for the food. They sent him a bill for $2.75. So, if they're going to be that looking at money to the extent the Watchtower does, I don't think they're gonna do too much for these Bethelites, friends. I don't know.
Hey, Rick.
Go ahead. The first one first. Go, brother.
No, go ahead. After you.
Hey, Rick, I know you had your convention Stay Alive in 2025.
Yeah.
You got to realize 50 years ago, they predicted the end of the world.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We were going to get a little into that tonight. Yeah.
1975, that was like Saturday morning Shazam ISIS hour. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
Well, they're really not preaching Armageddon much more. They're now saying it's not going to come in your lifetime. So they're getting away from it.
I don't see you coming on the program with bell bottoms and safari jackets or the style of 1975.
No. Nehru jackets, yeah, all that stuff. No, it's all different now, but that's 50 years ago. 50 years ago, yeah.
And also think about it like the world where it was at. Like, would you be content for the world to end at 1975? Like everything that's come since then?
Oh, there's been a revolution. There's been a renaissance period here. All of the technology, all of the various inventions and discoveries in the last 50 years. Oh, my goodness, I can't believe it all. I was just talking to my wife about that today.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
I like the Jesse and Yuma. Hey, I wanted to throw a different dynamic. I like what I'm hearing. Everybody's great. But, you know, I've been a businessman since I was 24, my own business. And I'm had to make payroll every Friday and run a legitimate tax-paying business here in the United States. And I went through 9/11. I saw the market, the recession. I saw the 2008 housing crisis. And as a businessman in construction and service industry, when there's good times and bad times, it's like going to Las Vegas. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And but something happens in labor. When you're running 45 guys, 25 guys, 35 guys, and the market drops, you have to let go of people, no matter how much it hurts. It's almost like a death in the family. And the ownership and leadership of any organization that has to lay off people, sometimes it's worse than pulling teeth without anesthesia. I mean, it is like bloody murder. And so I think what you're seeing with the letter and everything and letting go of the Bethelites, I really think that it's an insight into the finances of Watchtower. They don't want to use up their money to carry those people anymore. So they're laying off. And it's not technically called laying off. It's just letting go dead weight and to save money. So it's costing, they're bleeding, and it shows up. Any employer would tell you, hey, when you're not bringing in revenue, you have to let go of the dead weight. And I know that sounds very callous to call it dead weight, but they're not bringing in anything of value financially. So Watchtower is cutting them off, just like any business would. That's what I see that's happening with letting go of the Bethelites. I think it's a 100% a financial move.
Well, you got it now. You know, Jesse, as we all know, our Bethelites, they're paid, currently, from what I understand, it's $120 a month, the average Bethelite. Now, you know, that's not a lot of money in today. That's chump change, really, when you stop and think about it. But here's what I'm thinking is, you know, even though that's still, you add all the Bethelites up right now, currently there's about 4,000, from what I understand, worldwide. So you add those all up, you know, $120 a week, it's some sizable money. But more than that, even, it's housing them and feeding them and paying the electric bills and all
property taxes.
All
it just goes on, and the insurance and the liability. They still have to have insurance on the vehicles, on the buildings, so there's so much overhead burden that is just, we can't even think off the top of our head. And that's not even going into any lawsuits that they have from the CSA. So it is a huge financial thing that they're doing. I think they're cutting it dead weight.
Well, good comments, Jesse. Always good to hear from you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Who's up?
Thank you.
Who's next? Who wants to say? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just hold on. I think that's. Is that Maverick in London? Go ahead, Maverick.
Yes, it's Maverick. Hi, everyone. I hear what Jesse's saying, but the morality of it, Rick, the lack of morality. Look what they're spending on the studio, the Ramapo. They have a moral duty to care for their people who've basically slaved for them in the institutional slavery, you know. And now they can spend up to 500 million on this and that and the other in these big fancy studios, and they don't have decency to look after people who've given their entire life to them. I think there's just they can't come back from this, Rick. It's disgusting. And the thing is as well, on top of it, there is this principle, as we know, of the blind leading the blind. Both will fall in the pit. You know, unfortunately, we were blind and we followed blind leaders, and they had a big hole there and we fell in that hole. Most of us have been affected by sadly. So there is some sort of responsibility that we carry, but really and truly, the Watchtower has the money to look after these people. I kind of beg to differ on slightly from what Jesse's saying, but I do understand where he's coming from.
Right now, in fact, well, we talked, it was back in 2024 that they set up that asset management company in Ireland. And according to the Irish Business newspaper, a secular newspaper in Ireland, they estimated the worth of the Watchtower to be $7 billion. Now, you know, I'm sure a lot of it is not in cash. It's in real estate holdings and what have you. But even nonetheless, even if you had to sell off some property in order to take care of some people that were very, very useful to you and helped you a lot to expand your organization. But it's cold-hearted. It's very cold-hearted, and you're not going to see much from the Watchtower here, really not. And they're soft pedaling. This, as I said in this letter that I read, that idea of, there's extenuating circumstance that some Bethelites over 60 will leave. That means most of them. They'll keep a few mucky mucks around, but that means most of them. Yeah. Thank you, Maverick.
Hey, Rick?
Yes, Dick.
Yeah, just a quick thought. Barbara Anderson had a guest on her program last year, I think it was, and he went to prison rather than go into the military. And when he came out of prison, he went in as a ministerial servant. And when he came out 2 years later, he had to re-qualify as a ministerial servant. But he noted that nobody did anything for him. He was gone for 2 years, made no money, come out of prison broke. And the Watchtower would have you believe these Bethelites can go back to their former congregations, and their former congregations will take care of them. Well, that's a bold-faced lie. They didn't take care of this brother who went in the military. If you go to prison as a mafioso, as a mobster, and you get out of prison after 5 or 10 years serving a sentence for crime, they have a big party for you, and they do all kinds of things for you. The mob does. But at the Watchtower, you always used to say that the Watchtower is worse than the mob, and they are, and they certainly are. So this brother comes out of prison, and nobody does anything for him. As a matter of fact, he has to re-qualify as a ministerial servant. This is crazy. What they're telling you, or what they're trying to tell us, is that these brothers that are going to be leaving Bethel, being kicked out, hit the bricks. They're Bethelites. You've been working for us for 30 years. Hit the bricks. No retirement. No Social Security. Nothing. And you're going to go back to a congregation that doesn't even remember your name. This poor brother that went into prison, he was only there 2 years, and when he came out, nobody knew him or wanted to know him or didn't think that what he did was that special. So when these brothers, after spending 30 years at Bethel, they're going to come back to their congregations. If the congregations haven't split 4 or 5 times, and they're not going to know anybody, and the elders are struggling, they're not going to be able to help them. These brothers are going to be out in the cold, and I mean it, out in the cold. This is a sinister organization. There is no love in it. Connie wants to say something.
But not only that, though.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. Dan, Donald, hold on. I got Connie first, okay? You just hold on now. Wait for this. Wait for Connie. Yep. Go ahead, Connie.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. I was going to say, just in reference to what Rich said, that brother, he was conscientious objector, thought he was doing the right thing. He had, for going to prison, he had a felony on his record for the rest of his life. And like Rich was saying, when he got out of prison after 2 years, nobody said, "Oh, thank you, brother, for your faithfulness and serving Jehovah." No. And it was a real eye-opening experience for this brother to realize, wow, I made these kinds of sacrifices for this organization, and what did I get? Nothing in return. But in reference to the Bethelites today, Rick, I've always said what's going to happen to them is, they're going to go to Health and Human Services, the welfare department, to
qualify for food stamps, and GR is a cash grant for the homeless. And they have to show verification of where they are, that they're a resident there. But the thing is, the problem, I mean, that's food and there's food pantries. But the issue is, where do they live? How do they have a roof over their head? Well, they're going to either have to go into a shelter, which is not the best. But like also you said, Rick, is that there are many Jehovah's Witnesses that are at the campgrounds. They're going to campgrounds and they're, I guess getting a tent. You can do that with a cash grant. Buy yourself a tent at Walmart, and they're living at campgrounds. And how sad. And these brothers and sisters are thinking, oh my gosh, I gave up all this for Jehovah God, to further his kingdom, and this is the way I'm treated. See, that's why a lot of JWs are waking up, not so much with regards to the doctrine issues, if they have any, discrepancies or disagreements with that. It really comes down to the issue of, where in the hell is the love in this organization? And then when you're in it long enough, you realize there isn't. Watchtower just used and abused you for their own personal gain, and you were just a puppet. And so this is what corporations do. After they're done with you, they kick you out the door and say, thank you very much, and that's it. And unfortunately, these brothers and sisters were very naive, thinking they were doing the right thing, that they were serving Jehovah, and they really weren't. That's the sad part about it. They're the ones that are paying the price for it. They were serving a corporation. So thank you, Rick.
Yeah, in fact, Connie, I'm glad you brought that up. But there are right now as we speak, there are a lot of homeless Jehovah's Witnesses. Information coming into the 6 screen shows many witness families moving in with each other to, afford the high cost of living. And I'm thinking in terms of even if you were homeless and you were sleeping in your car or your van, you couldn't park it in a Kingdom Hall parking lot. We've talked about that as well. We've had some stories on here about people who were homeless and tried to park in a Kingdom Hall parking lot. Nope, can't do it here. It's very unaccommodating. And I can just imagine, I'm sure everyone's thinking the same. A man brought up though earlier, and it was somewhat sensible to me. And a lot of these people, when they go into Bethel, and it's just like us when we became loyal followers of Jehovah's Witnesses, many of us have saw the way out and said, that's it, we've had enough. And these guys, many of them stayed in there. I know when Johnny the Bethelite came on years ago, Johnny talked about, I won't say what department he worked in, but he knew a man there and his wife. They were in their 60s, and they were pretty high up in the watchtower, but both of them were PMOs. But what are they going to do? They had no money. They had no retirement, no Social Security, and, they're going to be kicked to the curb. You got to have, and then in this letter I just read there tonight, they're more or less saying rely on Jehovah. Do you know how many people will probably commit suicide because of this? We know what happened back in 1929, right? When the stock market crashed, a lot of people lost a lot of money. They were going to lose their homes. They were going to lose everything. And they were jumping off bridges and jumping out of buildings. And that's going to be the same thing. We hope that doesn't happen. But because what are you going to do at that age? If you're 25, 30, 40, maybe even 50, you're resilient. You can bounce back. But you can't bounce back when you're into the 60s and 70s. It can't happen. You're on 6 screens, JW World News. What do you have to say? Go ahead. You're on with us.
Hello, Rick.
Let's go with Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, personally, people that work for us, we have one guy that lives in a tent, one guy that lives in his car. We've had 2 people that we've had to fire because of bad drug problems. And I don't know what they're really doing right now, but that's what's going to happen to some of these brothers and sisters. They're going to have to start, not just start over, but start. It's really hard today. There's just not the jobs. There's not the positions for people that don't have even a modicum of skills. So we really tried to, help these people, but wow, it's hard. And it's hard to, you know what? And it's hard to see it, and you don't know what to do to help them.
Well, thank you, Susan. Now that, adds some light to the conversation here. And, I know you're a generous person, and I try to be as generous as I can too. There's only so much you can do. But here's just a thought. Now, I'm not thinking, here for the governing body, but I'm thinking if I was a member of the governing body, well, what would I do? Would I have any sympathy? Well, look here's what you need. First of all, if a Bethelite leaves Bethel and he wants to get an apartment, him and his wife, first of all, they might not have much of a background, a credit check, or there might not be anything there because they've been relying on Bethel to take care of them all these years. So how can they even get an apartment? So even if all of a sudden the Watchtower governing body said, well, let's give all of these people a security, give them $5,000 a piece. I mean, that would amount to a sizable amount of money. I'm not saying they would do that, but it'd be nice if they did offer that. But even that wouldn't go too far. I mean, if you went out and rented an apartment today, and in my neck of the woods, to get a decent apartment, you're looking at $3,000 a month. So, even if they gave them $5,000, plus you're going to put a security deposit up. So you're looking at close to, 10 grand security deposit, and you also have to pay first month, last month, all of that. So you landed up with $10,000. Really, and even if the society, the organization gave them $10,000, that still wouldn't be enough. So I don't know. I don't know what they could do. I mean, they have the facility there, but obviously, as Jesse was thinking, that this is a financial reason they're doing this. What do you think?
Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
Donald. Let's give what we're going to do now. We're going to try to take turns here. So hold on, Donald. I'm going to bring you in, but I think we got a new brother speaking up. Go ahead.
602?
Yeah, 602. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's good that I called in because he said, if you were a member of the governing body, but now that you got one on there, I'll go ahead and tell you what's happening. Hey, Rick, before I tell you, this is very funny. You just brought up a good point. And this is so funny. I just thought about it. Donald Trump is offering, you made me think about this. Donald Trump is offering illegal aliens money if they would go to the airport and then self-deport. You've heard those news articles, right?
Yeah.
So isn't it funny that you just said that the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses will not even give these elderly men and women a deposit, security deposit, for their apartments or whatever. But Donald Trump, Satan's organization, all that good stuff, he's more magnanimous in the governing body. I just thought about that right now when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Isn't that the irony of it all? That the person that they hate so much, we know Watchtower hates Donald Trump. He is more magnanimous than they are, with but the point, there's I remember this movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it was called Point of View, and it was basically there was like a bombing in a city, and the movie was about like 5 or 6 different people seeing and witnessing the same catastrophe through different viewpoints. And I think when Jesse and the guy from London called, they were having great different viewpoints, and I just wanted to throw a different angle. And I think they're both right, but I could criticize you and say, Rick Barron is rich, but you have everything tied up in tools and printing presses and everything, and technically you're poor. But another person will say you're rich, but you're asset rich, or you have your house rich. We've heard of that, but you're cash poor. And I think that's probably what's happening. Watchtower doesn't have cash flow, and they can't tap into their real estate. They can't tap in over here. That money's already spoken for, and it's already in motion in a different direction. And I think maybe the congregations are just not giving Watchtower the money. And like Jesse says, they have no choice. The money's not coming in. And the real problem is that they're cash poor. They're asset rich, but cash poor. And you know that in business, a lot of your friends are super rich, but you know, they're sitting on $1 million property in Massachusetts, but they're cash poor because business is slow. And business is slow in the Watchtower business. Ain't nobody buying their magazines.
Well, there you go. Well, good comments. Good comments. Thank you. Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome.
Yeah, very good. Who's that other fellow want to come in? Go ahead. Who was that? That's Donald. Donald, come on back in, Donald. Yep.
Hey, I just wanted to say that, you know, it's sad that this stuff is happening to the people because, you know, like you said, they worked for Watchtower for years and years and years, and then Watchtower sets them free or sets them loose. And the thing is, I'd be more than willing to bet that the governing body, the individual members of the governing body, have money coming in for themselves. Lots and lots of money. They have accounts that they're getting money put into. Why can't they help these people? You know, they claim they're in a paradise, but that's no paradise. I mean, and when does paradise kick people out on the street? I mean, they claim they're in a spiritual paradise, but there's no spiritual paradise there. It's just an organization that uses people and then spits them out when they're through with them. You know, they use them for whatever they want to use them for. And now with the AI stuff coming into the Watchtower, with them developing their AI apps and their AI programs, you know, they're going to let people go sooner because they can have the AI work for them. Now, I like AI. I use AI myself to write with, but Watchtower is really just, from what it sounds like, from what I've been hearing from you guys, it's a very sad case. I mean,
is that
people living in tents and stuff can't afford to get an apartment. It's just terrible, and yet Watchtower is going to be held accountable for that. Because people are going to say, what have you done with these people? You know, have you fed them? Have you clothed them? Have you given them a place to live? And they're going to probably stand there and say, oh, didn't we do this in Jesus? Did we do this in your name? Didn't we cast out demons? Didn't we do this? Blah, blah, blah. And Jesus is going to say, I never knew you, because they took care of their own people.
No, he'll walk away. No, you're right with that, Donald. You're absolutely right. And wouldn't it be great to have a governing body member come on here, or at least an official of the Watchtower, maybe working in the accounting department, to come on and you know, voice their concerns. You know, maybe if they really came out and were honest with everybody in the world, they're not honest, we know that. But if they were honest even among themselves and would say, look, here's our situation. We're running into, as Gilbert just said, we're running into a cash situation. And these are reasons why we have to do it. But they don't even, you know, in that letter that I read, there's not even a reason why. You know, if I look at, here's what I would do. You know, I have a small company. It's a tiny company. But can you imagine you have a company, say you got a big company like the Watchtower. So what you would do is you would at least give a reason why you can't have them with you anymore. Yeah, I mean, that's what a legitimate, honest company would do. Gee, you know, I have to tell you, Mr. Employee, business isn't that great. We're not getting the business in we used to get. We're in a recession. Something took place and there's no money coming through here, so we just can't do it. But they don't even give a reason. There's not even a reason stated there. But yet at the same time, they're dumping all of these people that have devoted their life to the Watchtower, and we're going to bring commuter people in. Now, these commuter people, I did a little research on them too. Most of these commuter people already have jobs. They work part-time. They have a roof over their head. So kick all these others out, bring these on. And but there's even no reason why they're kicking them out. So, you know, you have to scratch your head here and say, come on, Watchtower, have some empathy for people. All right, we're gonna move on. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, hold on. Let's bring on. So hold on. Let's bring on someone that hasn't spoken up yet. I heard a new lady on there. Go ahead, lady.
Leave it in Jehovah's hands.
Yeah, that's I think
it's the slogan, leave it in Jehovah's hands.
I think that's Grace from Sweden. Is that you, Grace? I think
No,
no, it's not. Okay, so I think it's a Swedish accent. Anyways, but
no, it's the second time I on your phone in.
all right, I do remember you. Thank you, sister, for calling back in tonight. Thank you. Okay,
I thought it was Grace too.
all right, that's it. Go ahead, Zach.
I would say leave it in Jehovah hands. Jehovah will provide.
Yeah,
Can I comment on this too?
yeah, go ahead, Zach.
Okay, thank you. This letter, what I think from this letter is that this letter is not the announcement. They've been hearing announcements probably over the table. And this letter is the annual letter that they get from the governing body. I have 4 of them, and they usually come out the last day of the year. Apparently, they're doing December 30th, because that's the date you read out. What do I think? I think there's money problems. Yeah. But I want to accept what they say about 60 years and older. Okay. I'm going to go take them at face value that for the most part, people who are 60 and over will remain there. What about that person who came there when they were 19 or 20 and they're now 56 years old or 55 years old? So what do? They put their life into serving at Watchtower. And now they have to come out and develop a skill. You know, a lot of the skills that they had were in printing, but that kind of seems to be changing, doesn't it? So I think another thing that's going on here is they need to be honest about what they think about the end of the system. Do they really believe there's going to be an end of the system? They're trying to clean up because of there are probably a lot of upset Bethelites because of announcements that they've heard that are not in this letter. And so this letter is trying to assure them. Years ago, when you mentioned earlier how much money they get, and it was like, you said about $120 a month. Do you remember, Rick, when it used to be about $25 a month?
I remember it was 14 a month.
Oh, well, I think in the late 70s, it was about 25 a month. The only reason why it jumped up to 80 back around that time is because people, what another Bethelite explained to me who was there in the late 70s, people used to have to put in some kind of a requisition for car fare so that they could make all the meetings. And brothers and sisters were forgetting to put the requisition in for car fare. And so they decided to just put the whole thing together, and they started getting $80 a month. So a large part of that is for making the meetings, you know, some of that allowance. There's another change that had gone through. They used to call it the monthly amount an allowance, and you used to have to pay self-employment tax. And so you got to put something into Social Security, but you can imagine at $80 a month, it's not much. You wouldn't have a Social Security enough to live on. And then somewhere in there, someone got this bright idea to change it from an allowance, which was like self-employment income, to being a reimbursement of expenses. So after they changed it to reimbursement of expenses, the same amount of money, you no longer had to pay Social Security tax, self-employment tax. You used to pay it out of, when it was there, self-employment tax, you paid it out of this special personal expense account, which at the time was from $20 to $30 a month that you could receive after year end. And the amount of that monthly personal expense account was based on the number of years of full-time service that you had. But I definitely think the end of the system is no longer, they're not looking at it the same way anymore. Well, that's all I have.
All right. Well, Zachary, that's interesting. That's a different twist on the story here. So you feel that by not believing Armageddon's right around the corner, that the Watchtower has taken a different position here on full-time workers?
Well, I don't think that's the only thing. I think there are layers. I also do think that it's a cash. They're looking, if they've done projections, they're probably seeing a decrease in cash because a lot of people are attending on Zoom. That box is not right in your face all the time. So I think it can be part of it's money. I think part of it is their view of the end of the system, even though they may not come out and say it.
Well, interesting. Thank you, Zach, for
Yeah, they may see a lot more years than they would want to admit.
Well, thank you for chiming in, Zach. Appreciate it. All right. Well, anyways, it's quite a steer. It's steering everything up. And I mean, we're just ex-witnesses, but you can imagine how a Bethelite feels right now. Well, let's take a look. Let's go in and take a look and see what's going on for the year 2025. Let's go way back to January of 2025. And of course, we brought up on the 6 screens, we're still alive in 2025. And 50 years have passed, the 6,000 years of man's existence. What happened, Watchtower? What happened? We're still here after 50 years. So if you were 20 years old in 1975, when the new order was supposed to start, that means that you will be 70 years old right now. So, I mean, you put all your life, many witnesses. I'm glad I got out. I'm glad Satan kicked me out of his organization 15 years ago. In fact, 20 years ago, I should say. I'm glad that happened. So from 1966 to 1975, the Watchtower regularly implied that Armageddon would arrive in 1975. However, ask one of Jehovah's Witnesses about this date, and they will invariably deny there ever being such statements. I mean, we all know better, right, friends? I'm not going to go into it, but we started off, 2025 in January last year, 50 years of them saying the end was coming. They got to do something with it. And we see that they have tried to move that goalpost out further, even as we go into the year 2026. But let's just talk about 2025, January specifically. Something came across in January that caught my attention, because what we have now is a lot of countries coming down on the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this has been an ongoing battle, you could say, with various countries challenging the Jehovah's Witnesses on their belief system and their doctrines. Well, basically belief systems more than doctrines. But back in January 2025, I mentioned this on 6 screens at the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia. The Czech Republic now is looking to deregister the Jehovah's Witnesses. And now I haven't heard anything else about that. For some reason, it seems like the kibosh, someone puts the kibosh on some of these countries, but they started looking into the situation of Jehovah's Witnesses and the problems they cause in families. And there's been a number of countries that we talked about all during 2025. Denmark, Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Slovakia, Japan. There's been a number of countries where the Watchtower has been looking closely at the Jehovah's Witness movement. So that's a good thing that we started seeing this happening last year. And basically in the year 2025, a number of countries really started looking really close at the Jehovah's Witness cult. And because that's what they are, a cult, and there's no question about that. So anyways, we also learned, and this is right from Watchtower itself, that they are going to delete from their files that you could not get books that would be 1981 and back. So they wanted to get all of these out of the Kingdom Hall libraries. They wanted to be able to delete them from their online library. They want to go back to 1981 and no further. That's it. So why would you think that would be? I mean, there's a lot of false prophecies in there, right? False predictions the Watchtower had to eat crow on. So in essence, they had to do something, and that's what they did. And they made an ongoing effort, I should say, of getting all the Kingdom Halls to send them the literature that was prior to 1981. And they sent it all up to Wallkill, where the farm used to be. They sent it to Wallkill, and according to sources that actually came on the 6 screens and talked about it, they had friends that worked at Bethel Wallkill, and they were taking all of these old books, older than 1981, and they were burning them in a special little facility that they provided to burn these books on in Wallkill. So they had to do this. Obviously, they had to really get rid of some of this old news, so to speak, because it just is strangling the Watchtower. So, they're covering up old light to make room for new lies. That's what the Watchtower is doing right now, covering up old light.
Right.
Yes.
Rick, hi, it's Donnie here.
Yes, Donnie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need any of those old books because when I was a little girl, I was born in 68. I remember my relatives, JW relatives, coming over to visit us. And they were saying, the end's coming in 75, the end's coming soon in 75. My dad said it was a load of rubbish. But anyway, now I was on the phone to my auntie, one of those relatives, recently. I only rang her to say, Auntie, I found some cousins on your side of the family in America. And anyway, she started preaching to me about the Watchtower. And the funny thing is, they preach to you, don't they, when you've left? They preach to you as if you don't know what the message is. And I said to her, Auntie, I remember when I was a little girl and you came to visit and you said the end's coming in 1975. I said, Auntie, it didn't come. I said, so the Watchtower Society are false prophets. She put the phone down on me. So that is how they deal with it. They block their ears and they don't want to hear. They go la, la, la and just walk away. And that's, I think, is how they're going to deal with it.
Well, Donnie, I'm so glad that you called in from London, and you obviously have been touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower, but you're out now. Well, thank you for commenting tonight, Donnie.
So, I'm very upset that my auntie put the phone down. It's so rude, isn't it? Putting the phone down on your knees.
Oh.
She started speaking to me. I wasn't talking to her about.
Well, that's what they do. I mean, well, you're an apostate, Donnie. You're an apostate, Donnie. You're mentally.
Because I called you out for being a false prophet. Yeah, I suppose I am.
Yeah, not only that, you're mentally diseased. No, I'm not saying that, but that's what the Watchtower would call you, Donnie. Hey, well, thank you, Donnie, for chiming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, let's move on to March 2025. Well, what happened in March? I went back and I looked at all my old notes and kind of looked around to see what was going on for the year 2025. And the governing body back in March was instructing circuit overseers and elders to love bomb the ones who left and were considered inactive. Now, this was a phony baloney move by the Watchtower to try to attract new members because they're hemorrhaging. So they were giving instructions on to really, be kinder to people that haven't been coming to the meeting. And after all, Jesus showed more love than anger toward people. So they used the example of Jesus. And so why do you think they were giving those instructions? Friends, there's a lot of people that just said, I'm not going to the meetings anymore. They would become what you would call inactive. And to become inactive, you've got to miss, at least when I was a witness, you had to miss, I believe it was 3 consecutive months of reporting no time. So a lot of witnesses have just stopped even participating in service. And so they weren't going to give them the cold shoulder. I mean, these could represent thousands, maybe millions of people. So in March of 2025, the governing body instructed the circuit overseers, when you go into those kingdom halls, you let those elders know that we've got to love bomb those who have left. If we get them back in here, cuddle them, cozy up to them, let them know we love them. Yeah, and then another thing, I'll tell you, this organization just is all over the map at times. So, anyways, in March of 2025, word came into the 6 screens that they now are going to have what they call an Elder Appreciation Day. Yes. Can you imagine that? Elder Appreciation Day. I mean, that's one of the most narcissistic things I ever heard of, really. I mean, really, you're going to really have a day for the elders? I mean, I'm not making this up, friends. This is an actual thing. Now, it didn't only happen in March. Like we've discussed here numerous times on the 6 screens, they send off little trial balloons, you could say. They try different things in different parts of the country. So during March, April, and through there, they started having these elder appreciation days, and they were popping up pretty much all over the country. Now, what got my attention on this is, you can't celebrate a birthday. You can't really have any celebrations, Mother's Day, Father's Day, but you can have Elders Day. You can have Elders Appreciation. Yeah, so this really was irritating to me and irritating to many, not only ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, but even some witnesses questioned the fact, well, look we're not worshiping these people. I mean, what are we doing? A special day for the elders? That was bad. So, that I look at that as, that was news. That was news. Elder Appreciation Day. I mean, this organization, they'll go to wit's end to get you to be so enamored, so connected to an elder, to actually have an Elder Appreciation Day. That is pretty sick, isn't it? Really. They won't celebrate Christmas. They won't even really acknowledge Jesus' birth. They say his death is more important than his birth. But, they'll have an Elders Day. Boy, I'll tell you what, when all of these officials of the Watchtower have to appear before the great white throne someday, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. I just wouldn't want to be in their shoes. So anyways, what else happened? Well, in March, I'll tell you, this is something that also got our audience speaking up and talking a lot. And now, see, I've always told you here on the 6 screens, what the Watchtower does is they tell you before they tell you while they're telling you, and they tell you what they told you. You heard that a million times from me, I know. But I want to use this as a perfect example. There was a March article. We brought it up in March. It was in the Watchtower. And the name of the article was Jehovah's Hand is Not Too Short. You say, well, what is that all about? Well, what this article dealt with, it was talking about people now who are Jehovah's Witnesses to plan for future needs. They were telling them that the unexpected befall all of us. And no matter what happens, be determined to trust in Jehovah and use his power to provide us materially. Okay, stop right there. That's kind of like telling you before they told you. I just read a letter here in December from the Watchtower governing body to the Bethelites, telling them that, they're now going to have to be put out. They're not going to be Bethel anymore. So back in March, they were telling the Bethelites, or telling all witnesses, to start preparing for the future. Then, of course, after that, too, they started saying that Armageddon isn't going to be coming. So they were telling you before they told you. So they were saying in this article to trust Jehovah's hand because you will be tested. Oh, I guess you will be tested. I mean, those Bethelites right now are being tested. And consider what our situation would be like as we grow older. That was stated in the Watchtower. So here they are, kicking Bethelites to the curb. But at the same time, in this article back in March in the Watchtower, they're talking about, you want to consider yourself in what would happen when you grow old. So, I mean, were they telling these Bethelites then and hoping they would pick up on something? So then they use the Bible. They say the Bible uses us to work, or encourages us, I should say, to work hard so that we can care for our material needs. And then the Watchtower is even saying to set something aside for the future. Really, the Watchtower is changing, and a lot of changes took place here in 2025. When was the last time you heard Watchtower say, set something aside for the future? Friends, when I was in years ago, the Watchtower discouraged even buying life insurance. The Watchtower would discourage maybe investing in the stock market. They just say, well, why do that? Armageddon's coming. Why invest now for the future? That would be like rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. The whole system's going down. I mean, really. So these are things I'm picked up during the year. We're really starting to see the Watchtower make a real pivotal change here in 2025. Let's see what else they talk about. Back in March too, we talked about this on the 6 screens. The Public Information Desk. Yes, they closed it in March. The Public Information Desk at Watchtower is closed. Now, why would they close that? Well, see, there's not too much good the Watchtower could really publicize. Now, remember Hendricks, right? Robert Hendricks. He was the head of the Public Information Department. And there wasn't much, he was really just fibbing. He was telling stories that were highly exaggerated, how the witnesses are growing. And I think they got rid of that Public Information Department based on the fact that everybody was getting sick of it, including even the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. Oh, yeah, I mean, they can see it. They go in the Kingdom Halls. They go to the conventions. They go to the assemblies. They see empty seats. And this guy comes on, we're growing. He leaps and bounds, even during COVID. No, nobody's growing here. But this guy would come on and do that. So, in March, they did away with the Public Information Department. And then in April, let's move on to April 2025. I'll tell you what, Philip Bromley, does that ring a bell with you? Philip Bromley. Well, he was one of the top Jehovah's Witness attorneys. He still is. In fact, in the July edition, because, Watchtower comes out earlier, but we reported on it because I read that Watchtower. And in April, we talked about the July 2025 Watchtower. I had a whole article devoted to Philip Bromley. Now, why would this be shocking to me? Or why should it even be shocking to you? Well, despite his giving misleading and false statements contained in 2 affidavits filed in connection with a pair of Montana child abuse lawsuits against the Watchtower, he was fined. This Bromley character, Watchtower lawyer, was fined $154,448 back in 2023. But here the Watchtower, 2 years later, is writing an article on how wonderful, how Jehovah is working with Philip Bromley. I mean, can you believe all this? Absolutely. And, back then we also reported back in March that it came out, it's official, that we now, and I say we, but I'm saying Jehovah's Witnesses, how many people in the Jehovah's Witness religion do you think are 50 years or older? How many people do you think are 50 years or older? Well, friends, we learned in March that it's over half of all the Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide are 50 years or older. So it's getting older, right? The organization's people are growing old and they're not getting new ones in. Now, also, we learned about the retention rate. Retention rate. That's very important. In other words, if you become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, what's your chances of staying in? I'll tell you what, the retention rate for Jehovah's Witnesses is only 33%. Now, that's according to a national survey. So out of every 100 people, that means over 60 leave. So, the retention rate isn't that great for the Jehovah's Witnesses. And then we also learned in March that God's wisdom, that they had an article in the Watchtower magazine in July, but like I say, it comes out early, so we were reporting on it in March. But there was an article, God's wisdom is allowing bearded Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, that was an article in the Watchtower back then. But I have to say that the Watchtower, what they were saying, and this caught my attention. I mentioned it on the 6 screens in one of the paragraphs in that particular article about Jehovah's wisdom allowing beards. They were saying that, they got the wisdom from Jehovah, and that guided the governing body into allowing Jehovah's Witnesses to grow beards. I mean, can you believe that? Yes. Yes.
This is Donald here. That is strange, because how can they say that God is allowing men to wear beards when God himself made men with facial hair? So where did they get that pile of garbage from? I think what it is, instead of saying that they allowed it, they're trying to put it on God. Oh, now God allowed us to wear them. No, God didn't change his mind. They did.
Well, there you go. That's exactly right. But how dare they even bring God into the equation there? That would be totally sad when you stop and think about it. Jehovah God is not going to be changing his mind about anything.
Because it was Rutherford that stopped the beards in the first place.
Yes, exactly. Well, I want to move on here. We talked about a few months here, but some of these things that caught my attention. I want to go to June here. Something in June really got a lot of buzz here on the 6 screens. A lot of people called in about it. And what it had to do was new light on baptisms. You say, well, what's new, Rick? What actually happened? How did the Watchtower change their position on baptism? Well, it really had nothing to do with being baptized in water and all of that. It's nothing doctrinal, but there was a policy change in the Watchtower concerning baptisms back in June. And it had to do with what it was, because of baptisms, witnesses would be going to conventions like out in Long Beach, California, and up in Montreal and different large cities in the United States. And the Watchtower saw that not as many people are getting baptized. So, I mean, before, when, I was a witness back in the in the year 2000, 90s, you had to really answer 200 questions before you could even be baptized. And, do you feel this organization is God's true organization? Will you respect the elders? They're like 200 questions leading you up to baptism. And you had to answer those questions, and you had to get them all right before you could be baptized. Well, this year, the Watchtower took a different position because they need more baptized witnesses. So what they're doing is they're fast-tracking baptisms and, getting anybody, even people that haven't been that spiritually strong. I mean, before, to be baptized, you had to be going out in service regularly. You had to be coming to the meetings regularly. From what we've found out this year, you could be a real flunky. You could be a real slacker. You didn't have to go out in service regularly. You didn't have to come to the meetings regularly. Just once in a while, show up at a meeting and let them know that you want to be a baptized witness, and bingo, there you are. So the baptisms have become a lot easier ones, and that's what they're trying to do, is do everything they can to make it look like they have growth in the organization. And I found that very, very fascinating. I want to move forward here to July 2025. And I picked out some of the top stories of 2025 in the Watchtower that the way that I picked them was in view of the amount of people that called in and we buzzed about it. In other words, people spoke about it. But in July of 2025, something very cringe started showing up at large events around the world. The witness cart movement. They started showing up, for example, during the famous French cycling race I forget what they call that now. Some of you folks probably know, but it's a bicycle race. And sure enough, the witnesses were there with their carts, the Super Bowl.
It was the Tour de France, I think.
You're right. Thank you, Donald. The Tour de France, right? That's what it was. So these carts are now showing up at all these major sporting events. And now, friends, they're even in Disney World, if you can believe that. At least Disneyland. Let me rephrase that. We have got word that they are inside the Magic Kingdom. Now, they never spoke highly about Disney. They never, wanted children to watch Disney movies, but here they are inside the Magic Kingdom. I mean, are these guys hypocrites or what? But they're everywhere. So the carts in 2025, they started being more noticeable. And then also we see all these pictures coming across YouTube and Facebook. And some of the witnesses, they wouldn't even take their carts to a big event. They would put it at a beach area, at a camping area. No, nobody's even walking by. How many pictures have we seen like that? So, just this cart work, I mean, I don't know how successful it is, but I don't think it's that successful. But I'll tell you what, and then I was thinking too, when we talked about the cart showing up at the Super Bowl. Now you have all these people, some of them paying $6,000 to $10,000 a seat, and they're going into the game to watch the Super Bowl. Do you think they're going to stop and talk to a Jehovah's Witness about the end coming or whatever? I mean, how foolish is that? But the Watchtower is doing everything they possibly can to attract people, to get people connected to the Watchtower organization. But something also came up in July of 2025 that really got a lot of attention here on the 6 screens. And that had to do with the British Parliament. Oh my goodness. Do you remember that? A man in the British Parliament, he actually called the Jehovah's Witnesses a cult. They were talking about Jehovah's Witnesses in Parliament. Of course, that would be like Congress in the United States, but Parliament in the UK. So this one man, he came up and they were discussing shunning. It was being brought up in the UK how Jehovah's Witnesses shun and how bad it is for people psychologically. And the man's name was Sam Carling, and he was a member of Parliament. And from what I remember, he also was at one time one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he became a UK Parliament member. And he called the Jehovah's Witnesses right on the floors of Parliament an atrocious religion handling of the CSA, child sex abuse. And I'll tell you what, that was unbelievable. That was also in the news, secular news as well, not just my JW World News. So I found that very fascinating. So here we have a member in the Parliament of the UK calling Jehovah's Witnesses a dangerous cult. So here he didn't say dangerous cult, but he said atrocious position they've taken on handling of the child sex problem abuse. Sam Carling, thank you very much, Sam. You're helping the cause. Keep up the good work. Also, let's see what took place. Well, I can't let the year go by without talking about August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That was our Still Alive in 2025 convention. As a matter of fact, if you put that in AI, ask punch into Google AI, Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, and ask, what was the largest ex-Jehovah's Witness convention of all time? Well, I'm proud to tell you it was a Still Alive in 2025 convention that we had up here in Boston. Now, friends, I have to tell you, it was really a good convention. We had some of the most high-profile apostates in the whole ex-witness world show up. They came in from pretty much all over the country. We had people from Sweden. We had a woman come in from Australia. We had people from the UK. We had numerous people from many states here in the United States. And we had the largest ex-witness convention ever. And I have to tell you, we had 350 people accumulatively. Now, we had it for 3 days. So what it was I noticed a lot of people would come and they were frightened to even walk into an ex-witness convention. I mean, it's all apostates, right? But I talked to numerous couples that came in for, they stayed for a couple hours and they left. It wasn't because the convention was boring. It's just they left because they thought someone was going to find out about them and report them. But we did have 350 people, and that's what we were hoping to get. But friends, I have to tell you, I was really getting nervous near the end. I had all these people lined up. I had speakers. I rented the facility at the Hilton Gardens Hotel up here in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. We had everything set in place. Excuse me. In the last week, I'm just grabbing a drink of water here. Hold on one second. Excuse me. So the last week of the arrangements, I'm getting all these people, Rick, I can't come. I don't have my right, flying license. I don't have my national ID card to fly. People calling me up saying they ran out of money. They couldn't come. So we had a lot of that happening. So I'm starting to think, boy, I'm really going to eat crow because I really promoted this, friend. You know that. I promoted it. I was laser focused on getting this convention to be very good. And I didn't have to eat crow. I want to tell you, some of the people that showed up and really helped me was our good friends out of North Carolina, Nadine and Scott Walton, a man that worked with me, Doug Regan, and of course, Norman LaRoe. I mean, all these people stepped in and we had a very successful convention. And I want to thank all those people that came up. But I'll tell you what, it's not over yet. There was a 10-person film crew that was there filming the whole event, and they're making a movie. And the last I heard, they're shooting for Netflix. Now, let's hope that can happen. But what this film is doing is it's highlighting the harm the Watchtower organization has caused to many people. They wanted to come to this convention because it would be a pivoting point. It would show all of these people came and wanted to meet and share stories and be able to encourage one another. And plus, what the film crew did is they took some people aside and actually filmed them in separate rooms, talking about their real extreme abuse in the Watchtower, the shunning, the being sexually molested. So that movie's going to come out shortly. The last I heard, somewhere around the first of the year. But don't hold me now. I'm not the producer, but this is what they told me. But we'll be seeing that movie shortly, and they are shooting to get it on Netflix. So that would be really, really wonderful. And all those that could have come to the convention, you had to sign a release that, you could be in this movie. So be looking for the movie, and you might be in it when it comes out. So we'll see what happens. So anyways, you're on JW World News. This is the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about, but we talk about it every single Saturday night and every other Sunday. Now, we will not have Six Screen Sunday this week. We had it last week. So by all means, come in next Sunday and listen to it. I'm going to move on now. We're going to be talking about, still back in August. This governing body updates, they have these governing body updates every month on JW Broadcasting on their website. And everybody, this actually goes into September. In September, we were all looking forward to the update because we thought with all the changes that took place on just fellowshipping, on how, in 2025, we're not to refer witnesses, I say, are not to refer to it as disfellowshipping anymore, than to call it removed. So there's a lot of changes they made, and also the idea of being able to toast, and also on education. You can now go to school, college. They called it additional education, not university, but they just called it additional education. So there's been some changes in 2025. So we were all looking forward to the September update and to see what they would say, because we knew the governing body was going to meet at the annual meeting next month. So we figured maybe we get some little clues to what would be said at the governing body meeting. But basically, it was kind of disappointing. It was really a nothing burger. There wasn't much in that we got excited about. but we were still all looking forward to the governing body annual meeting that was coming up in October. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. But also, I just want to back up to Japan in August. In August 2025, we reported here on the 6 screens about the country of Japan. And they passed some legislation, the government in Japan, for the most groundbreaking reforms in years. The Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare had officially classified and forced religions to act in harmony with their new laws concerning child abuse. So the Watchtower caught the attention of the Japanese government. And starting in October 2025, a few months ago, Japan now is enforcing a new child abuse law that specifically recognizes forced religious practices as abuse of children. Now that abuse just doesn't cover sexual abuse. It covers if a child is even shunned, a young teenager being shunned. It also, you can't use corporal punishment on the children. You can't. Japan is a very unique country. They take things very seriously, more than we do here in America. But they look at, paddling a child is a very bad thing. And as we learn, that is a bad thing, really. But Japan takes it very seriously. So they were looking into the witnesses, and they had all these ex-witnesses come and testify how they were treated when they were young children. And so many of them talked about how discipline, how much of a disciplinarian mostly their mothers were, on how they were really, really hit hard by their mothers and their fathers too. So Japan's, I'll tell you what, they still have the witnesses under the microscope. So these were some big changes that we've seen. And one of the biggest changes too, I have to tell you, would come in November. And that would be in view of the Watchtower study article that we talked about here on the 6 screens. Now, this really got everyone's attention. And I would say this is one of the top stories on 6 screens for the whole year of 2025. And what it was in November be the Watchtower Study Edition 2025 on paragraph 7. Something was said on paragraph 7 that shocked not only the Jehovah's Witness world, but the ex-Jehovah's Witness world as well. Now, this is an article from the November 25th. I'm reading it verbatim right from the Watchtower. Paragraph 7. If you feel, well, let's go here. Try to remember that Jehovah is patiently waiting to bring an end to this wicked world. But his patience is not without purpose. His patience is allowing millions of people the time and the opportunity to come and know him and serve him, while the world is continuing to populate. He wants to bring more people to the organization. But also in that particular article, he talks, the article talks about, don't be disappointed if Armageddon doesn't show up in your lifetime. Now, you imagine reading that and being in the organization for so many years. You put all of your resources, your time, you raised your family around the witnesses, you took jobs. It could be sanctioned by the Jehovah's Witness organization. You did everything, sacrificed a good part of your life for many years, many did. And then you read a November article in the Watchtower saying that, don't be impatient, but it may not come in your lifetime. I mean, that would be a shocker. That would be a real shocker. And the night we brought that up on the 6 screens, it was a shocker. So anyways, those are some of the top stories that I found for the year. And I started off, of course, reading the story of the letter that was given to Bethel in December. So if anyone has any thoughts or comments, go ahead, bring it forward. What do you think? Anything get your attention there that you want to speak about? Go ahead. Go ahead. You're on with us. Who's that? All right. All right. 719. Did you want to say something? You're on with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, this is Chad. I don't want to say anything about that right there, but on what you've been visiting about, but I would like to say that the Jehovah's Witnesses are making a big push on TikTok, doing a lot of witnessing, trying to get people to come into the organization on TikTok. And they're on there so much that, you know, you even get to know some of them by name because they're on there day after day, or night after night, I should say. And some of those programs are lasting all night long. And I think that the organization has given them permission to do this, feeling that they had nothing to lose, because normally they wouldn't let them be on there.
Well, there you go. Yeah, no, they're going to use TikTok as a very popular platform right now. So that's why they're jumping on there, because they're trying to get attention.
Yes. But I think it's backfiring on them. But there are a lot of people in there listening to them. And you can't really go in there and say anything because they just call you an apostate, and they hit the button so you can't talk. So that's the bad part about it. But I just wanted to bring it up that it is kind of bad that they are doing that kind of witnessing on TikTok.
Well, I agree with you, but they're going to do everything they can, brother. They're going to do everything they can to get more people. Well, thank you. Thank you for chiming in with us tonight. I really appreciate it. Let's go to 7. I guess that would be, well, let's go to, I think it's Stephen, 312 Chicago. Is that you, Stephen?
Yeah, that's me. I just have a quick question, Rick. Was it 2025 when they made the 2 new governing body appointments, or was that 2024?
2024.
Oh, okay. That's it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Yep. 5-7.
I'm still concerned for the British lady when her aunt hung up on her. They tell the people at the Kingdom Hall to love bomb, but the real story is, you know, that's her relative and she needs to talk to her auntie and her auntie needs to talk to her. And it just shows the contrast between the reality of it and the policy.
Well, it sure does, Pixie. And you know how cruel it is to have members of your family who at one time was so dear to you. You love them, you were with them. And for an organization to just boom, cut that relationship off, that's terrible. That's mean, that's rotten. But the Watchtower is that type of an organization. Let's go to 712. 712, you're on with us. Go ahead.
Hello, Rick. Yeah, I was going to say that that's just unbelievable that they said that Armageddon you may not see Armageddon in your lifetime. Telling congregations that's, I mean, I remember the 1980s. We thought it could happen the next day. I mean, it was, you know, they claimed peace and security and Babylon the Great would fall, and it's just unreal. I can't believe that they said that, and which I guess they're telling the truth, because I mean, they don't know. They never have known, and they just filled this full of BS. So.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I mean, I know you have been touched as well by the tentacles of the Watchtower, and you've experienced a lot of anxiety and hurt because of this organization. But we want to thank you for coming on and being part of this and, you know, expressing your thoughts on it and being a real activist. We always appreciate you calling in. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we certainly have brought you right up to speed on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And friends, what is up for 2026? Where are they heading in 2026? Well, I'll tell you, the door is now open. We can see that. I believe they'll continue with more and more doctrinal changes. I believe we're going to see the Watchtower getting, more into video production, as that man just said. They got a bunch of witnesses now preaching on TikTok. They're going to try every avenue they can to get the word out. I believe that what you're also going to see is additional policies being changed. Many people have projected that they're going to have to allow for birthday, maybe even get back to celebrating Christmas as they one time would. But that's speculation, and we really don't know. But 2026 is going to bring a new year. 2025 was not a good year for the Watchtower. And we can see, as we discussed earlier tonight, that the Watchtower is not the same organization that many of us belong to. And we can see the changes. And don't you think that people in the organization and our loyal followers aren't seeing it either? And as we always discuss here in the Six Screens, there could be upwards of 4 to 5 million PMOs. Half of the organization could be going to the meetings and in service in a perfunctory fashion. They're just going through the motions. They don't believe it, but they know what happens when you leave. Well, in fact, I want to thank everyone for coming into the Six Screens tonight. I want to thank all those that called in. I want to thank all those that were in the chat rooms on Facebook and YouTube. And we really appreciate your presence. And thank you for spending some time with us here on a Saturday night. And we wish you all the best. We hope that all goes well for you the rest of the week. We hope you all have a happy new year. And don't you guys ever give in, up, or out. Keep exposing the Watchtower. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. We'll see you next week right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. Good night, everyone.